Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, and welcome back to the Homestead Education Podcast. I just want to remind you that you can get all of my homestead science books on my website for a new way of teaching agriculture to today's youth and aspiring homesteaders by focusing on small scale farming and self sufficiency. If you're a school or co op, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Uh, so, life on the homestead never really ends. I guess that sounded weird. Busyness on the homestead never really ends. As we have been like alone the last few weeks with my husband in Oregon helping his dad out, we actually, right when we thought, like the kids and I thought that everything was kind of settled, we had a calf born, so it's just kind of one of those, everything is always busy. But we were really excited because this calf is a heifer from our favorite milk cow. And not only is she our favorite, we had already decided that if she had a heifer this year, we were going to keep it to be like our replacement family cow in a few years because our favorite cow, she's like 9 years old now. So, there's a chance that she might be kind of going downhill in like her production and stuff like that. And we don't want to push her past her comfort anyways. So this will be really perfect because our favorite is a Belfair, which means she's half Jersey and half Dexter. She's given us wonderful calves over the years that we've used, for beef, for dairy, just whatever made sense that year. But this year we bred her to our brown Swiss bull. So this little calf is half brown Swiss, half Belfair and I am just really excited for her. We are still working on names, so maybe by the time you hear this, we've already picked one, but if we haven't, I would love for you to hop over to our Instagram. Um, let's see, we have the Homestead Education Instagram, but then we also have Hannah Homestead, which is where I've posted a bunch about her. And you can see how cute she is. And if you have any name ideas, we'd love to hear them. Plus, I'll also be announcing the name when we decide it. Um, if you've been following us at all lately, you probably have noticed that we recently released the Homestead Education Student Planner. It's a little late in the year, I know. People are probably like, why are you releasing an academic planner in October? Well, because I'm busy and I'm the only one who does the creation. But what I really wanted to point out with this one is I did it undated on purpose because as homeschoolers, when does our academic year actually start? I designed it for junior high and high school students, and it really focuses on kids that they can be homeschoolers or public school. I mean, there's no specifics on that within the planner, but it does have place for farm chores. It has place where kids can track their livestock projects, whether that's just something they're doing on their own or through 4-H or FFA. It has places to track their reading. It's got like think about like the last planner you bought, you flip to the back and it has all these weird conversions that like really mean nothing to you and that type of stuff. This has a whole section just on homestead facts, agricultural conversions, a gestation calendar for livestock, an incubation time frame for different birds. It's very aesthetically pleasing, and you can choose from three different really gorgeous covers. So, if you want to grab that, you can get it either printed or digital. Just hop over to the website. It'll be linked below the planner, but it's thehomesteadeducation.com/student dash planner. So be sure and go check that out. Other than that, we're kind of just hunkering down for the winter. Something I always do is I start making my reading list because that's my favorite part of winter is that everything slows down and I get to read. I had a goal this year of reading 50 books, which I've gotten really close to before. But this year didn't really go the way I thought it was gonna go. So I have not reached even close to 50 bucks. I think I've only hit about 10. However, it is just now the beginning of November, so I could easily hit 20 or 25 before the end of the year. We'll just have to see. It depends on what I'm listening to versus physically reading and how long they are. Um, if you're interested in what my reading list is, you can find me on Goodreads. I probably should have brought up my handle beforehand, but I always get so excited about this one because when you follow me on Goodreads, I can also see what you're reading. And you might be finding really awesome books that I haven't found yet, but then you're also getting to see everything that I'm reading or have read in the past. And there's going to be some really great books in there that, just really hit like what, um, we're teaching and when I say we, like, the homesteaders, the homeschoolers, foodies, that type of thing. So I clicked in there and it had like a whole section of books on Native Americans for like American Heritage Month or something. And I was like, ooh, I want to read those. And then I realized that I was actually going to get something for you guys. So let me see, what is my profile name on here? See, it's got my name and then it's got my website, but I'm not really sure what my actual profile is, but it just has me as Kody Hanner, Kodyhanner. So if you want to go find me on there, I would absolutely love it, and we can share everything that we are reading or want to read. If I do find that link, I will make sure that I post it in the show notes, and then you can make sure you're following me there. So, I do want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by our family's new business, Port Hill Printing. You probably think we're crazy that we have another new business, but being homeschoolers and self-publishers, we have discovered how hard it is to find affordable book printing. Going on to Staples, you're looking at 80, $90 for the average, spiral bound color homeschool book. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. And as homeschool parents, a lot of times we have multiple children that we need books for. And if you're a self-publisher and you're just trying to get started, to order your books is outrageously expensive. And if you want to get them at any reasonable price, you have to buy in bulk. And it just really hinders a lot of self-publishers, businesses, co-ops, anything like that. Printing is just outrageous. And especially if you want color, I mean, forget about it. So we bought all the equipment to print for ourselves, but we wanted to be able to help others. So if you are interested in getting anything printed, getting your curriculum printed for the year, whatever it might be, go ahead and head over to www.porthillprinting.com, or you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Port Hill Printing. And that there's a lot of options on there to just, I'm uploading a book, I just want it printed. Here it is, I'm paying for it in advance, ship it to me. Because yes, we do ship everywhere. Or if you're like, hey, I have all these books I need printed and I need like the best price possible and I need to be quoted on it or whatever, then you can just reach out to us and there's either you can enter all your information for a quote or you can reach out to us directly and we'll set you up to get a quote in. We do wide format printing as well. Um, Business cards, brochures, any of that type of stuff. And we're continuing to expand what we're able to do. So I'm excited to start creating with you. Now, I have a topic that we need to talk about. I've talked about it a little bit on social media this last week. And honestly, I meant to um, release this episode a couple days ago, but my husband's been out of town. Like I said, we had a calf born, and I'm actually having like a small surgery tomorrow. And so I've been really like gearing up for that, and this kind of got pushed out. So actually, by the time this comes out, we may have some different information coming from DC, but as you all know, we are shut down right now. And one of the things that is holding up the shutdown. And I will admit that as far as the actual bill that's being voted on, I haven't spent a ton of time studying that. What I've more focused on the things that directly affect food and agriculture. But from what I understand, it's being held up for providing healthcare to illegals, illegal aliens, undocumented, whatever we want to call them. Um, I don't know if I'm not politically correct or I'm just old school. We've always called them illegal aliens. So with that, I'm all about people immigrating. I'm all about, spouses getting medical care and that type of stuff. But if you're here illegally, I mean, just right at the top of the list, illegal. I mean, that's the what you're doing is a crime. And anybody else who is an American citizen and commits certain crimes, they are not eligible for any type of services. So just kind of right there, let's just pull that right off the top. But what has happened with this shutdown is that anybody who receives food stamps through, or I think they're called SNAP benefits now. Here comes my old school again, but it's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and I'm actually going to get into why it is called that later. Um, but that comes directly through things like the Farm Bill, which I think they're calling it like the Big Beautiful Bill at this point. And that's because supplemental nutrition and agriculture go hand in hand. Um, and a lot of people don't see it that way, but it is absolutely 100%, you know, the reason it was even put into place originally was to pair low-income families and surplus agriculture. So I did a lot of research. I wrote up some stuff, so I'm just going to kind of jump into it. Everybody's screaming like it's the liberals, it's the conservatives, it's the illegals, it's the food system, it's the school system, and the answer is yes. Yeah, yes, that's the problem. Um, we have a society that's dependent on the system, and as we see time and time again, and without the majority waking up, is that if they control the food, they control the people. I mean, it is you look at anything in history, like we're constantly told that we have to take a history class so that we don't repeat the past, but all we continue to do is repeat the past. I mean, if you want a book to read to really understand like how we keep shooting ourselves in the foot agriculturally, read the book Dirt. It's there's a sub word name to it. It's something like the erosion of the American society or something like that. You've got to read it. I listened to it. Honestly, it's a rather long book, and I actually hated soil science in college, so I thought that it was all going to be about soil science, and I was going to be bored out of my mind. But I wanted to read it, or get the information from it anyways, and I actually really loved it. So go learn why we keep shooting ourselves in the foot. But yes, back to if they control the food, they control the people. So this is why we saw such a cultural shift after COVID. And it was that people were in droves opting out of the system, maybe faster than people opted into it, which is just mind blowing. And I think we're continuing to see those trends as families choose to homeschool, buy from farms over stores, and just like question everything. Um, my husband and I were just talking about this last night. I feel like everything that we questioned, and then I questioned myself, like, ooh, am I just a conspiracy theorist? Um, am I, not being loyal? I mean, whatever it is that we want to associate that with, especially a lot of people in our generation who kind of grew up with some narcissistic mindsets from the generation before us, and how we should view our country and our family and that type of stuff. So to question things feels sacrilegious. And but the last 5, 10 years, everything we question has turned out to be that we should have questioned it. Um, so I'd love to sit here and just go down every rabbit trail that I have followed and discuss conspiracy theories that we have all watched unravel. I mean, no wonder everyone is questioning the Charlie Kirk story so hard. Um, Everything else that we have been fed over the years and longer, hint, hint, JFK. has unraveled, and it makes me feel like our government is just juggling too many lies, and I think it's going to crash down, and probably soon. However, that conversation is not completely constructive today unless we're talking about how the government's feeding us right now. So, um, because today, as a nation, we are facing something larger. And when this comes out Wednesday morning, like I said, we might have some new answers. Everything I'm saying could be completely irrelevant, but I don't think it is because we've gotten to this place at this time. And the question is, will 42 million people be going hungry this week or longer? And we're already a few days into it. I haven't heard of anybody starving yet. Um, Takes 3 weeks to starve to death. Not that that was really harsh, and I just like came up with that like in my head. So that is not valid. Just erase that part. But no, actually, like people are screaming like we're gonna starve if we don't get our food, and you're not going to in a few days. And the communities are really rallying up on making sure food banks are stocked and things like that, while we sort some things out in DC that needs to be sorted out. Um, and I'm already hearing, but I am hearing reports that, like I said, the government could open. But it could take several days for the benefits to be issued, even if the government reopens on Wednesday. So, taking some steps back, let's remind ourselves of what I said before. If they control the food, they control the people. Am I beating a dead horse? Good, because we might actually be eating that horse. um, there have been a lot of people like diving into food history and politics from about 1900 on. This includes myself. There were some crazy things that were put into place over the years to fund agriculture, education, farming. Like the entire basis of my original career after college was based on a book written in, oof, I should know this, like 1905, by Upton Sinclair called The Jungle. And it was about just the crazy, like the horrible work conditions in like slaughter plants. And then people were like, oh my gosh, if that's what people are facing in slaughter plants, what is happening with our food? And then with that came, the Food Safety Modernization Act. Well, no, the Food Safety Modernization Act came in like 2008, but it was like the first Food Safety Act came out at that time. Um, so yeah, it's been about 100, 120 years that food safety has been really prevalent. And like I said, that was like the basis of my career after college. So some people are blaming this cultural shift and decline on the Industrial Revolution. I've heard the Great Depression, the Green Revolution of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Some blame it on the Civil Rights Movement in Vietnam. Honestly, with every book I read, I'm hoping for that like aha moment where we can like just point out what that's where society went wrong. But honestly, none of us are ever going to find that. Um, Even if there is this one defining moment in political history, it's been buried so deep in the archives, we're never going to be able to aha that moment. But I think that we are in a place to start peeling back the layers and fixing them as we go. My chair is sinking down. So if anyone's watching this on YouTube, you just watched me like sink probably 5 inches in the last couple of minutes. Okay. All right. Now that y'all got to see me try to figure out my chair. Um, so let's go over what we do know or what we can easily consume without the lens of relying on systems. And boy, oh boy, do we need to remove those glasses. I speak at events all the time, and I feel like I'm on repeat. Like, we need to raise self-sufficient kids, and that doesn't mean teaching them how to bake bread. It means stop teaching them to rely on systems. Um, yes, I just flipped a page because I wanted all my notes to be really clear on this so that nobody could say that I was spouting facts that weren't like totally valid. So, food stamps were originally created in 1939 by FDR as a solution to people struggling during the Great Depression and as a surplus to agricultural products. So, I kind of mentioned that earlier. Food stamps were not just to help people that were struggling financially. They were also to help farmers who had surplus foods that were going to waste. So the food stamps had to be purchased. Yes, I said purchased. For every dollar that was spent on a food stamp, so they spent, dollar for dollar on these food stamps, they also received 50 cents in surplus food stamps to use on these surplus products. Um, so this program lasted about 4 years. After, in 39, so in 4 years, 44, we were in the middle of World War II. Yes, there was rationing going on for that, but in a different way. So 18 years later, the program was revisited. It was approved, but they didn't like actually redo the program for a few more years after that. Um, but they allowed another program that was for purchasing food stamps at a lesser percentage than they were worth. So this was again an effort to increase the consumption of perishables from surplus agricultural programs. So what this was is instead of the dollar for dollar, it was, for every dollar you spent or every cent, I don't know, dollar you spent, you got like $1.30 in food stamps. I don't know exactly what it was. Um, Personally, I really respect the concept of purchasing food stamps, but that limits some options as well. Um, However, in 1964, the Food Stamp Act was passed, making the program permanent. This still came with a lot of stipulations, and they still had to be purchased. However, you had to qualify for them, and also imported items couldn't be purchased. So they wanted to, like when I say they, I'm talking like Congress and stuff. They wanted to make it where like nothing processed could be purchased, and I think what they settled on is that it couldn't be imported. So at least all of the monies were going to domestic farmers. By the early 1970s, there were over 10 million people on food stamps. That means that 5% of the US population was receiving food stamps in the early 1970s. The problem that arises from this, from that number of people on food stamps, is that instead of people working harder to feed their families, they know that they have a fallback option. What is that equal? Relying on systems. With time, the threshold of urgency to provide for ourselves lowers while simultaneously the threshold to qualify for the assistance lowers. So there's no longer this bar up here. I need to be supporting my family at this bar. They're like, hey, I don't have to work as hard. I have a fallback. I'm good. At the same time, the government's saying, oh my gosh, so many people are needing this. We need to lower the standards. And what happens is that both of those bars just keep lowering. And do I need to state the obvious? That if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. That has to like literally be our mantra. So when I was doing my research to make sure I was correct on all my dates, I noticed that the USDA website uses vernacular like there was growth in participation. Seriously? This isn't a study or a soccer game. They weren't participating. How about there was a growth in need? Or the government encouraged more people to seek aid by lowering the requirements. I feel like the government issuing millions of dollars every month directly to families is a serious issue and not a participation award. But in 1977, there were so many people receiving aid. And on top of that, people said they were being restricted from this participation because they had to purchase them. I'm sorry, I find that funny. Like, I'm being restricted from this like handout you're giving me because I have to do my part to receive them. Okay, wow. Um, this feels ridiculous to me. Like, you would need to like buy food anyways. So why not buy it at this massively discounted price? So they took away the need to purchase the food stamps. They did add a ton of regulations. However, they also removed the requirement to have a cooking facility in homes. I'm gonna have to circle back to this one. But in 1977, you no longer have to pay for them, and you no longer are required to have to cook anything to get them. So you're totally fine to be buying everything processed, basically. Um, oh, um, so in the 1980s, there was a lot of scrutiny over the amount the government was spending. So in 1988, the Domestic Hunger Act hit the stage. This included a little more leniency in the food stamps requirements, but it also added a requirement for nutritional education. Okay, we have a win. In my opinion, that was too late. Are you looking for new ways to advertise your business? I would like to invite you to advertise your business on the Homestead Education Podcast. Did you know that 60% of listeners will make a purchase after hearing an ad on a podcast? Why is this? Because personal connections and credibility from someone they truly trust will give you the best conversions. My podcast has been on the air for over 3 years now, and with an average of 5,000 downloads per episode and tons of long term listeners, you're bound to have somebody who will find that credibility in me. All ad spots will be promoted on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and my weekly newsletter. I have podcast sponsorship spots available that are affordable for all business sizes. And all advertising revenue will be used towards my educational outreach in the form of travel costs, curriculum development, supplies, and the administration of such activities. Go to my show notes now or visit thehomesteadeducation.com/podcast dash sponsorship. I hope to hear from you soon. As a society, nutritional education had already gone out the window when it was decided to stop requiring this to be taught in schools. This was, and I'm not talking about like learning your macros while sitting cross-legged on the gym floor and then being forced to play basketball, because I remember my nutrition education in high school and that's what included, and it was boring and it was uncomfortable because we were sitting on the gym floor and we had nothing to write on. So we're like laying sideways, scribbling something on a piece of paper just so our PE teachers could say, check, we taught them nutrition. It doesn't work like that. Um, I'm talking that like we need to know how and why we eat whole foods and how that nourishes us. And then teach us how to prepare them from scratch in a way that doesn't feel impossible. It feels natural. I do go into this a little bit further, like how we could actually implement this. So, small scale agriculture, like what people can do in their backyards, maybe a little beyond to earn some income at home, which was the standard for hundreds of years. You grew your own food, you sold your surplus to people who didn't have as much, or they, worked in other fields or whatever that may be. That is not something that anybody knows how to do anymore. Anybody who wants to make a surplus is selling AI written downloads online. That's the bah! Like sell some eggs because I need eggs more than an AI written download on, I don't know, how to get along with people better or something. I saw one on that the other day. I was like, oh my gosh. Um, so it should be required education with, let's see here. They should also teach home economics, and it should not be taught as a vocation. It should be required education with vocational agriculture and culinary classes being offered for those students who are interested in pursuing those as a potential career course. Um, I also believe that high school is not a place for that in-depth analytical thinking. This should be more a place where you are learning real-world vocational skills with your general education following heavier like um, on the like then on the math, English, lab, sciences, history, that type of stuff. You should understand those things. You should have to take some of them. Um, I think that more classes should be focused on how you can have a future. Not to say that they shouldn't be required or offered for students who are pursuing like these vocations or um, professional degrees, but I was a college prep student in high school, and like my course load was focused on me getting into a four-year college. That means that instead of being offered courses that could have helped me get a part-time job during college or even manage college life, I was pushed to take advanced mathematics and honors English. I liked the classes, but I can tell you right now that I've never needed to analyze Shakespearean literature in my adult life. And I'm the person who thinks that algebra should be 100% required for everybody because the analytical problem solving that you get from that is used in everyday life. Again, I've never felt a need to analyze Shakespearean literature or any of the concepts that that was teaching at the same time. I would have benefited way more from like technical writing, communication, or reading a book like Omnivore's Dilemma. I don't even know if that was out when I was in high school. I think it was. I think it came out in like 92. So that would have been way before I was in high school. Now, in 2008, the name of the program, food stamps, was changed to SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Told you I would tell you why. It was to remove the stigma of requiring aid. I'm sorry, but I believe like shame puts a little bit more urgency on not being on the program. They also made it easy to stay on food stamps through simplified reporting. So, I mean, if you need it to be, elderly and that type of stuff who really don't have a choice, they're on a fixed income, they have no way of changing this for themselves. If you want to call it a nutritional program, take the stigma away from them. That's fine. But for like pro and they have a different name for their like insurance. It's um Medicaid or something like that. Yeah, I think it's Medicaid. Rather than like state insurance would be called something different. And so then that's the one that's associated with welfare, where Medicaid is associated with elderly people who can't afford more. So I think they could have done the same thing with food stamps because if you're an able-bodied like adult person, you should have that stigma to be trying to get your family off of the system of real or the yeah, just the reliance on systems. So the program has continued to grow, even including more restrictions against fraud and other recipient restrictions, but also allowing more people to receive them. Today, there are 42 million people on food stamps. That is over 12% of the US population. So, while everyone is screaming about how many people are not going to receive their benefits this month, why are people not screaming about the fact that we have such a large percentage of our population receiving benefits? That is the problem. Now, here's the fun part. I am not a monster sitting on my high horse who doesn't understand. I was on food stamps for 7 years. Okay? I lost my well-paying job while I was pregnant with my twins, 17, 18 years ago. Um, I was then a domestic violence victim when my twins were 3 months old. Um, so I went from a two-income household with no children to a no-income household with two children within a matter of weeks. I had rent, utilities, a car payment, groceries, formula, and not even child support because my husband was in jail, and a divorce takes 6 months to be completed to even get awarded child support. I needed options immediately. During those 7 years, I received assistance. I got 3 college degrees. I secured a job in my field receiving transitional food stamps for the last 3 years that I was on food stamps. And it's at a higher rate for single parents who are re-entering the workforce, probably so that we can like, buy lunches or, pack lunches and that type of stuff. We don't have the option of cooking at home as often. I moved into a nice rental. By the way, I kept the same car the whole time. So I was able to, have be able to make my car payment and have regular transportation to school, to work, to daycare, whatever it is that I needed to do. I worked at an internship the entire time and then immediately went back to work. At no point did I not pay into the taxes that supported the programs that were helping me. At no point. So I was never like, hey, completely take care of me. I had grants, I had loans, I had scholarships, I worked the internship, I was paying rent that then was income for somebody else that they were paying taxes on. I was paying my car payment that there was taxes on that. I mean, I was constantly being a functioning member of society. Um, we ate Whole Foods. I froze half casseroles for future meals. We only got take and bake pizza every other Friday. When I got paid, we would get a pizza. I would get paid. I'd take the kids to rent a movie. We could eat on that pizza all weekend. Um, that was like our special treat. That was our big, big special treat. I remember at one point I was excited to get my food stamps because I had killed a deer, and my friends and I were going to make homemade sausage, but I needed pork fat from the store. And so I told them we have to wait till like the 5th when I get my food stamp so we can go get the fat and make the homemade sausage. We were actually, I mean, we were learning real skills, and my kids were little and they wanted to make sausage like we were with the big, grinder, and they couldn't do it. So they actually got bologna out and shoved it through the side of my laundry basket, which I'll tell you was a little annoying at the time. But I took a picture of it and I gave it to my instructor, and he's now the head of animal science at Colorado State University. And he still uses that as an example of what mechanical separation is. So, and my kids, my daughter, I mean, my twins, they make sausage all the time. They make homemade dog food using the grinder. Um, my daughter renders lard at home that she runs through the grinder first. I'm not saying that our meat grinder is the only piece of equipment they know how to use, but they are comfortable with it. Like they'll be in there doing something. Like the other night, my daughter wanted to make gyros for dinner. She didn't want to use like lamb stew meat. She wanted ground lamb. And she literally was like, "Oh, we should just grind the lamb." And her brother's like, "Okay." And he runs over and gets the grinder attachment for the food processor, and they made ground lamb to make gyros for dinner. I mean, it's just that like it didn't even cross their mind that like, "Oh, we don't have what we want, so it's not an option." They just jump right in and do it. And this is the type of things my kids were learning during this time that I was on food stamps. So honestly, I had a little more time sometimes because I didn't have to have full-time work. I could go to school. I could do my homework after they went to sleep at night. I worked at my internship, like Fridays, weekends, school breaks, that type of stuff. So I was able to be home with the kids and experience a lot of these things, and that was really special. So, I'm not. We occasionally bought a 6-pack of soda, or I let the kids pick out a packaged treat for their lunch, like some fruit snacks or something like that. We could have easily gone without those things. But just so you know, I got like $1,200 a month on food stamps. At the time, it was great, but I don't even spend that much for my family of 6 to eat right now. I mean, I think, okay, moving on. As infants and toddlers, I used the food stamp voucher program to buy from farmers markets, and I even made homemade baby food and snacks. And this was before I was a homesteader and felt like that was, something I was like destined to do, or I just did it because I knew that that was what was better for them at the time. And honestly, there were times when I got less food stamps and it was cheaper to go buy the vegetables, or my mom had them in her garden and stuff, and I could process them, say, and where I steamed them. Sometimes I mixed them with like baby rice and stuff. I wouldn't use baby rice at this point in life, but I'd put it in little containers and freeze it, and it would go with them, like to daycare and stuff like that. During that 7 years, I never received what I would call nutrition education. At my 6 month like follow-up appointments, I would get like a flyer that honestly looked like something you'd give a preschooler on like what fruits and vegetables were, despite the fact that the 2008 Farm Bill cited that added education, and that's when I went on food stamps was in 2008. Um, when I went to DC earlier this year and spoke with the chiefs of staff for the Agriculture Committee, they stated that they could not provide more education because recipients would not attend mandatory classes. Well, honestly, I wouldn't be a fan of a mandatory class like that either. But what about incentives like for taking courses on cooking at like an extension office or something like that? Like if they go, they get extra, I mean, I don't know. There's bound to be something they could do to make this more reasonable that isn't just this dumb little handout with grapes with smiley faces saying, you know, eat lots of fruits and vegetables. Like that it doesn't really teach you that these fruits and vegetables are actually necessary at like, your core cellular level and that you can save money on vitamins and doctor's appointments and things like that if you were actually eating properly. Would have been nice to know. Today, there's a reported, so this kind of goes back to the illegal immigrant part, is reported that there are 12% of the recipients of illegal immigrants, 5 million people, 5 million illegal immigrants receive food stamps. And based on the average household benefits for four people, that's $973. So then I divided that 5 million by four, like I was being good about it. That is 1,225,980,000 a month, not a year, not a decade, a month spent on food stamps for illegal immigrants. Overall, that's $8 billion a month on average for all food stamp recipients. Like, did you know it was that much? So now, 10% of those monies that are going to food stamp recipients is spent on soda. Soda is the second most purchased item with food stamps behind meat. Soda and sugary drinks. And that sugary drink label does not include juices. Juice is way down on the list. Um, so when you do 10% of what is spent on soda by illegal immigrants, that is $122.5 million a month spent on soda for illegal immigrants. That is over 800 million a month overall spent on soda pop. So when people are screaming about that and they're like, "Oh, what's the big deal that they have a little bit more?" That's what the big deal is. And it shows like non-food stamp recipients only something like 7% spend like their food dollars on soda over the like 12% or something that food stamp recipients do. Like, come on. Like, I can't afford to buy berries most of the time. Like, once a year, my kids get this really good fruit salad where I buy like one of every fruit and like put it all together, put a little Cool Whip in it. Like, it's a special treat. We can't afford a regular fruit salad, but the US can spend $122.5 million a month for illegals to buy soda. Like, are you hearing these numbers? Um, so there's a term in statistics, and I'm gonna tell you, like, I couldn't find what it was called. I know what it is, but it's like right on the tip of my tongue, and I couldn't think of it. That is used when marketers make statements like a 10% increase over previous results. But the previous results were so insignificant that the 10% literally means nothing. I mean, this was used a lot in like COVID with the vaccines and stuff. There a 60% increase in results, and then that 60% actually only equals to like, 100 people or something like that. So this is kind of opposite when they come on and say, um, like, sorry, I went to Google and Google said, no, this is like the Google AI. Only 12% of food stamp recipients are illegal aliens. So people go, oh, only 12%? I mean, that's high, but it's not terrible. No, that's 5 million people. Um, that is still the population of over half the states. Like, I thought that I would like hop online and like, see that maybe, 5 million is the population of Wyoming and that's like the least populated state. No. F Wyoming has 500,000 people. So it actually equaled out to like the same amount as the population of Colorado. About half the states in the country have about 5 million or less people in them. So the same number of people that we are giving food stamps to is like the same number of people as the population of Colorado. And like I looked up these numbers while I was writing this. Like I knew it was skewed, but like I wanted to look it up and be able to tell you exactly. So I'm like as shocked as you are right now. Like I stopped and like told my kids, like, can you believe these numbers? Um, the thing is, like, though, we have issues that run way deeper than whether or not people are getting their food stamps. Honestly, the issue isn't even how many people are on food stamps. Um, or I mean, just the fact that there are people on food stamps. Like, I think that a little aid is important. Like I said, I was on it myself. It helped reboot me, get my degree, get a good job. Now it's led to this business where I'm here helping you. Um, I think it's good. We have a mixed economy, as you know, in a mixed economy, there's capitalists there and there's people who struggle, and that's okay. Because then we have like our quote socialist programs like food stamps. But like I said, I think, in a mixed economy, if we can keep it under control, it's okay. But that's the problem, is as humans, we don't have a lot of control over ourselves. Like we can't um we can't moderate ourselves. It's kind of like human nature. So, some of the things like that's why we should have government in place, somebody there who can moderate us. But when our government is actually not moderating us and they're enabling us, it doesn't work. Um, so the in-between people, like we're not, you're not capitalists making millions of dollars. You also, aren't like in like low income. Like you're kind of somewhere in the middle. Like these people are the ones that are not taking those necessary steps or are really being encouraged to take the necessary steps to not be on aid. Or to learn how to have the ability to like take care of themselves should that aid suddenly not be available. So, like a middle class family, if they were growing some of their own food, stocking up a little bit, if things got tight, they would have what they needed. And, it's always preached to have 3 months worth of a savings in case you lose your job. Well, what about 3 months worth of food in case like the food industry shuts down like it did, 5 years ago when nobody had any food or, like nobody having food stamps right now. Like, because even if it's not you that needs it, it might be your neighbor or your sister or your kid's best friend or something that they need a little help getting through a time like this. And, just like you would possibly loan somebody money, you can loan them um food. I mean, it goes the same way. I always say sometimes we're not stocking up on food, we're stocking up on skills. We have a lot of food. Our farm produces year round. So if everything shut down where we didn't have food, like at the grocery store, bottom line is I could eat pork. Like even if I had to just eat pork, like 5 meals a day or whatever. But if I have skills built up, things like the kids and I learned how to make apple cider vinegar a few years ago. I don't make apple cider vinegar every year. That's a lot of work that it's not necessary. But should everything shut down one day, I could make apple cider vinegar. I could literally practically do it all year long because I have apples in my root cellar, So it's not something that I have to be doing, but I can do it should I need to. And I have the recipe and I have it written down and it's in my pantry, so I don't even have to get online to learn how to do it. So now I'm also talking about the people that don't know how to cook or refuse to. So they're buying all this processed food. This is insanely expensive. And I've seen women on TikTok lately saying if they don't get their food stamps, they're gonna fill their carts and at Walmart and just walk out. This is so disturbing to me that people are so entitled um that they believe their aid is owed to them, that they would rob a business. Like, I'm gonna commit a crime if my government doesn't support me. Like, I don't know what to do with that. Um, like, could you imagine, like, if we had, I mean, in modern times, we shouldn't have to resort to this. Could you imagine if, like, we had social media during the Great Depression? Like, people could have pulled their resources more efficiently. But seriously, like, if you have to go on TikTok and you're getting on, or like, if you even have a TikTok where you have a phone and access to social media and you're getting online in your dirty shirt with your lady parts hanging out, saying that you're gonna go rob Walmart, like maybe you need to take another look at life. Like, just saying. Um, Now, for those who truly need to be on assistance, I support it. But I believe there are better ways to support both those in need and the farmers. Which is why, like, the dual purpose basis for launching these programs. The program could be restricted to just like milk, cheese, yogurt, eggs, fresh meat, frozen, unprocessed meat, frozen or fresh, unprocessed fruits and vegetables, eggs, flour, oats, spices, salt, sugar, juice, coffee, like, basically like just the commodities, like kind of WIC on steroids, because WIC is very restrictive. And that's women, infants, children. It's where kids under, families with kids under 5 can get a little extra help, like with milk and vegetables and things like that. Now, the WIC program, actually, they have really good nutrition programs, but um, so food stamps could cover a little bit more than that, but it doesn't need to cover a ton more because then that's just like monies are going to farmers for that food to go into processed foods, and they're getting it at this like insanely low price because farmers are getting paid subsidies so they can sell their food like really, really cheap, which the farmer is then, the subsidies are not enough. What they're selling their food for is not enough. And those products are going into food processing plants where then labor and marketing markup and all that stuff is going in to the foods that are then sold to food stamp recipients at the highest rate possible for sugary processed foods that are no longer the commodities. So the food stamp recipients are getting the short end of the stick because they're paying a ton for it and getting unnutritious food in this supplemental nutrition assistance program. And the farmers are getting the short end of the stick. So really the only ones that are making money are these people in between. If you want a little more information on that, I do have a podcast that I did on um it was on like box tops for education and how cereal companies are just, totally out of control. And they're the ones that are paying people like the FDA and the CDC through nonprofit programs that they run. So if you want to know a little bit more about that. Um, so where was I? So like I said, the farmers are suffering. They, are getting the reduced price for the commodities. These programs could be extended to small farms on both ends. So, like, for example, the farmer could get like the point of sale system for the food stamps, and then, the food, they could accept food stamps for their products. Um, I think larger, smaller farms, I know that sounds kind of weird, but have programs like that now. Like if they have like a farm store where they set themselves up as a store and get those point of sale systems. But I think it could be made a little easier. Um, but the average small farmer is just not equipped, and nor is the average like food stamp recipient savvy enough to purchase from a small farm or know how to prepare these whole foods. So this is where the next step comes into play. Schools should be required to have like a farming slash home economics um, in a genuine and like relatable way. So, not a culinary course, not a crop management class, something simple but not hokey. So, like, we don't need seniors in high school circling which grape looks the happiest. Like, because I've seen these programs. They're just sad. Um, the students should have like a small greenhouse where they're growing like greens for salads. They could raise a small flock of chickens. I mean, I know that, then there's summertime and that type of stuff, but there's still options. Like, chickens start laying in 16 weeks. Like, have the kids start incubators in the fall. And by spring in a year-long class, these chickens should be laying eggs and then they can learn how to cook with them. I mean, how amazing would that be? Like integrating these two programs together as a required course. I know that there's definitely programs out there that do this because, hey, guess what? A lot of them use my curriculum to do that. So I know how this works and I know that it's possible. And there's even programs out there through these same farm bills that are funding these other programs will help schools get greenhouses and chicken coops and things like that. Like, why are we not doing this? Like, why? Um, and if you want to see this happen, like message me. I will help you figure it out. We will get the curriculum in place. We'll find the grants. Like the programs need to be doing this. Okay, I'll be honest, I don't have time to help everybody. But I like seriously reach out. If I get a ton of people reaching out, I'll put something together to help everybody. If it's just a few of you, I've done calls where I sit down and help programs put together their whole curriculum. I've helped programs just maybe use my curriculum and put it in place. So it's there's options. There absolutely are. You don't even have to just use my curriculum. I'm happy to help you figure out what works best for your program. But again, that's besides the point. So, have kids learn how to like cook with the staples, stock a pantry, like have them create a budget and a food prep list, create scenarios where their students have to complete like a simple home repair, or have them build the greenhouse. I mean, you can take it apart every year. I don't know. Like maybe that's not the best scenario, but like just kind of have this like general class that just teaches these like everyday life skills that people would have to do. Have them plan a meal from limited resources, not like, oh, I want to make homemade pizza and they have everything they need. Like where my family's looking around in the pantry sometimes, like, what are we gonna have for dinner? And we're like, ooh, we have flour. So we have the stuff to make dough. We have garlic powder. We have um we don't even have the tomato paste, but we have stewed tomatoes, so we can like drain them and run them through the food processor and season that up a little bit. And we made some homemade mozzarella this week, and we have sausage in the freezer. Like, there we go. We have pizza. It's not exactly what you'd get from the store, but honestly, sometimes I think it tastes better. Um, so I mean, then you can think of ways for like these kids to make small profits from their farm or cottage foods, but require this course at the high school level when they're ready to step out into the world and implement these skills. Like it's essential for that the next generation is more prepared than we were because there's a reason you're listening to this podcast. It's because like our generation and generation before us, generation after us, we were not raised prepared. And we're feeling that. And we want it for ourselves, we want it for our kids, we want it for our grandkids. So I also believe that doctors that accept any form of insurance, but honestly, all doctors, but especially like the ones that take like Medicaid, veterans, military insurance, anything that's paid like, by the federal government or the state, also have to have a requirement of yearly nutrition of like training of their choice. So they can, look into like holistic training or weight loss training or whatever it is they want to do. And that way they can still serve the patients that they're, like seeking a practitioner that fits their lifestyle. But currently there is no requirement at like medical school for like training or for license renewal that requires nutritional training and their total nutrition training is less than 25 hours out of the 11 years of education it takes to be a family practitioner. 25 hours out of 11 years. Like, okay, I didn't do this math. Let's do some math. Um, so let's just say they work 8 hours a day. And we all know that med students and residents and stuff are not only working 8 hours a day. But let's just say, so 8 hours a day, how many weeks are in a year? So times 5 for a week, times 52 weeks, times 11. So that's 22,880 hours. And 25 of those are towards nutrition. So just for like 25 divided by 23,000, that is 100th of a % of their educational hours is focused on nutrition. That's not okay. That doesn't work. Um, I also think that everyone who receives food stamps should receive like nutrition classes. I know that someone's going to mention all the time and resources that would go into that, but might I ask you to refer back to the $122.5 million that is going to illegal immigrants each month? Or the fact that many of those who believe they are entitled to benefits may not follow through with the classes and are therefore not eligible anymore. Plus, many people sell their benefits for less than they're worth to get cash for cigarettes, drugs, alcohol. It's a thing. It really happens. And the additional funding could go back to farm subsidy programs for these farmers that are drowning, quitting, disappearing, and have one of the highest suicide rates in the country. That should be our national emergency, that the people who grow our food are up against insurmountable odds. Food should not only fall under personal responsibility when it lands on your plate, because eating is an agricultural act. Hope y'all learned something today. Keep growing. Love to hear what you think of this episode. And I'll talk to you next week. Maybe. Like I said, I'm having surgery. Might be 2 weeks. But looking forward to chatting with everyone again. Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at Homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!